Okay, it's 4:00. So I call the regular Board of Public Works meeting to order. So first, let's have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
The flag of the United States of America. The Republic stand one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have on the line Richard Nichols, one of our board members. Presley is traveling today, and then the remaining board members are here. We have the mayor, Andrew Williams, our solicitor, our manager, our general manager, and our assistant general manager is also traveling. So with that, any revisions or alterations? If not, okay. So we have the consent agenda. Have a motion to approve the consent.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So now we're going to receive the Inframark report.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey, Mike.
Can you hear me, Josh?
I can.
So I'd like to introduce everybody to Jeffrey Kieran. He's the new project manager at wastewater plant, the level 4 operator.
Welcome. Happy to have you on board.
So Jeffrey started at the end of December, and then we also have a level 4 operator starting this coming Monday, and the master electrician starting this coming Monday. So
Oh, great.
And-
Thank you.
the master electrician can't start soon enough. So couple things I wanted to go over. Since the last meeting, we replaced the second pump at PS 16. If you recall, we had to source a pump. It was difficult to find, but we have the second pump in place, and you had granted authorization to get a spare pump for PS 13. That's been received. Other than that, we met with BPW and GMB at the wastewater plant to go over procedures and for the oxidation ditch, to empty the oxidation ditch for the inspection and repair. I believe you're going to discuss later. And then also with pump station 3, I think is on the agenda for later. We got updated quote from Hills, and then I also got a comparative quote on the equipment from Gorman Rupp. So that's update from that. Anybody have any questions?
I guess the only thing I would ask is under the projects that we add the oxidation ditch to that list.
I did for December, I think. I did.
Yeah, it's
Because I had the November and the December report.
December. It's on there.
Oh, okay. And
Mike, are you staying for the pump station?
Yeah, I
You are?
will. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff's got to go. We have a pump station issue that the guys are working at. but
Okay.
I'll stay.
Which pump station?
Pump station 9. The control issue. That's like electrician can't start soon enough.
Is this going to cause any problems or?
No, it's a small state.
Okay.
And I noticed in the December Viola report, there was talk about the lower permeability. And I know that you've subsequently done a hypochlorite clean, and it seems to have come back up.
Mhm.
But I was wondering what you're doing for the long term for this type of trending.
Well, I mean, we do the recovery cleans twice a year. I mean, that's to recover and, the, as Veolia suggested to do it, right before the colder months. So, and that should address it. But we'll be doing the manual cleaning here in, starting in February, we'll be pulling and doing the manual cleaning.
Okay.
But basically, I mean, we follow Veolia's leads and suggestions as far as the cleaning goes.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was, if this was something that the trending should have pointed to earlier on to have gotten a jump start on it, or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we'll do a better job in the future of scheduling, making sure in November or late October that we get all the recovery cleans done.
yeah, and it wasn't major. I understand that. I just was, interested in what's going to change. Any other questions?
Just a curiosity question more than anything, and the numbers are obviously incredibly good, the averages, but looking at nitrogen, 25, it can be 100, phosphorus can be 2, and it's 0.05. Would you expect these numbers to climb as we add more wastewater into the plant? Or do you think they would stay the same?
Well, the total nitrogen, I mean, without making any modifications to the plant, it might be more difficult to maintain because of, we talked about before, that the air valves aren't modulating. We have to manually adjust them. And as loadings come up and down, we have to manually adjust them. So that's something that could be improved at the plant. But with the phosphorus removal, it's just strictly adding chemical. So we can add more chemical and we can bring it down. So it wouldn't be a problem. But I think we can meet our limits, as the flows go up higher to, 1.5 million. I don't think it'll be an issue.
But it would be higher than it is today by
It probably would be higher and, a little more challenging.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I was going to note too, just for updates, because we added our capital budget. Charlie, I don't know if you want to mention, as far as the Headworks project, we're at the point now where we're just buttoning up the final drawings. You got the comments from Keystone. We were buttoning those up. That's going to be submitted to the state here within the next.
So Keystone's addressing our comments, and then they're supposed to have those back to us on Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll have it up to DENREC Monday or Tuesday for their review. And just depending on their immediate feedback, we'll decide whether we want to put it out to bid quickly or wait for their whole review. It just depends. Honestly, it depends on who's reviewing it up at DNREC. But we'll see how they respond to the submission, and then we'll have it out to bid, I would say, within definitely the next month.
Perfect. I'll put some on the calendar to ping them.
Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Richard, did you have any questions?
What is the estimated time frame from receipt of bid documents to completion of the work? Is there any kind of rough target?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the Headworks.
Yes, the Headworks.
So I'm going to, while Charlie's getting the mic, I think a lot of it's going to be supply chain dependent. I want to say the supply chain has gotten a little bit better on certain items. I mean, because you're replacing the 2 screens, rebuild of the 2 screens, your compactor, your Pistogrit, teacup, etc.
The classifier and the compactor are probably the longest lead items. The rebuilds of the screens, not as much on the lead time for the materials. But we have a significant amount of electrical work too. I would say if we get it, just for argument's sake, Richard, if we get it out to bid on March 1st, I would say September 30th, October 30th for completion, latest.
And could any of the work be fast tracked and put in as soon as that aspect of the Headworks is fabricated? Like the screens, for instance, if it's possible, if they were ready first, can they get in, and is that helpful? Or you really need the whole headworks assembly in and working to achieve the right results?
No, I think we can install, and Mike can speak to it probably. I know we can install parts of the project individually, but in saying that, we had to be coordinated with Mike and his operations staff. So, we have the proper screening and the proper grit removal happening at the same time. But it's definitely going to have to work like that, because we're not going to be able to take a series of screens out of service. It has to take, there'll be a little bit of coordination. There already has been on how we're going to do it, but definitely we can do some work before other work, and we'll have to do that.
And can that be part of the RPF for the contractors?
Yeah, it can be. I know Josh and I, Austin, have been talking about that, but I'm not sure if it's in the documents right now. But let me look that over, Richard.
Yeah, because we obviously would want to know what the cost impact is if it required sequential mobilization.
Well, we wouldn't expect any additional mobilization. It would just be
Doing them sequentially.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Richard.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So next item, the president's report. First, I want to thank everyone for coming out on Monday night to the public workshop we held. Apologize once again for the technical difficulties we had at the beginning, but we overcame them. We had approximately 80 people in the room and 50 people online.
It was 50.
50 in person, 76 online.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was backwards. So we had a good turnout, and Sharon has been compiling the comments from both the meeting and from those being submitted online. As I said at the meeting, we're taking comments till Friday, February 3rd, close of business.
So the 6th, we're going to give a full 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. I apologize. February 6th. And at that point then, and later on in the agenda, we'll be scheduling our public workshop for the board to discuss where we're at, next steps, public comments. So the public is welcome to attend, but it's a board workshop. Last month, and I think Austin's probably going to hit on these things, is, we had a holiday luncheon for city and the BPW staff, which was very well attended. It was great to get everyone back together again after 2 years of isolation. We are discussing the well field and water tank, and that will be on future agendas. But we've had several meetings with GHD on.
GMB.
Thank you. The other 3-letter word that starts with a G.
George Miles and Viewer LLC.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, I'm sorry. It's with GMB on the well field and the water tank. So we'll be continuing to develop that project. And last week, Presley and I went up to the water, which is the waste. Oh, I go blank now. WARDA, WRDA. It was the federal bill.
I'm not giving you any hints.
Oh, yeah. Really. Anyway, bill celebration at Bowers Beach. It was well attended. It was Lisa Blunt Rochester, Tom Carper, Lieutenant Governor, County Council or County, from both Newcastle, Wilmington, and Sussex were there. So it was a great celebration of a deal. And we're going to be looking into the implementation aspects of it. There is some money tied to each county on that bill, and it may be available for stormwater projects. So and that was all I had. Austin?
All right, so we had our pre-con meeting for Donovan Smith. We are working through one piece of the pie that's been challenging is the bank is requesting a policy for builder's risk. And so Teal is working through that so that can be sent over to the Grand Bridge, who is the servicer of the loan for KDM and Donovan Smith. So we're working through that. Before we sign anything, they have to sign off and approve it. We're also continuing to work on our planning grants. We have the planning grant for the water tower, the canal crossing, and we also have the one for the water study assessment, which is doing the water pipe assessment. Just some meetings. We had a couple meetings with 120 Water, which they're here today, and we're going to present on that today. We also, Kim and I have been loving every Tuesday at 10 a.m. We have our budget meeting. And then we're also going to be talking about, hopefully next month, the water tower and the canal crossing as a combined kind of discussion topic. We've had several meetings on it, and we're working through the data behind it, and we provided a lot of data. And then obviously we held our public meeting regarding the long-range plan for the wastewater treatment plant, and we'll have follow-up meetings on that. And we started the process of lining well 1 on Tuesday. So I would say a couple days for that, and we will be discussing well 3 today for subsequently getting that one in the rotation. Josh?
All right, thank you. My security, for the security report, we're averaging some pretty low numbers right now. So the primary firewall, we're coming in about 500, and the outlying buildings are substantially less. So very, very good numbers right now. As far as we're also working with Robin, the assistant general manager, with the mitigation committee to update the elevations for all of our assets for the GIS for that data. It's been a little while since I've reported to the board. So back in the fall, in November, we went ahead and we migrated our phone system to Zoom. The transition itself went well. We are working with the staff and the Zoom's onboarding team to tailor the Zoom for the best experience. We're just, unfortunately, there's a few bugs in it, but we're getting this worked out. We've been working pretty steady with the staff to try and accommodate them. Capital side, we are looking at a replacement for our meter readers handheld. The handhelds that we're currently utilizing are end of life. They've been end of life for some time now. There's no way to service or replace them. So we are in conversations with the Itron to update those that handheld. As of today, actually a couple hours ago, we are soft launching our .gov. So if you go to our website, lewesbpw.com, it'll actually take you to our new website, which is lewesbpwde.gov. In addition to that, all of the staff's .gov emails are updated and they should be live right now. It is a soft launch, and the reason that we're doing that is because it takes about a week or so for for Google and AOL and Yahoo, the search engines, to update that. So we're looking for a hard launch on the 1st. Let me see here. We also procured and have utilized the sat phones for the emergency. What was that? for the,
Burns?
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
It totally left me.
It happens.
We've also been working with GMB regarding the communications for the pump stations. Charlie and I we've already had a few meetings, and let me see here. Second from last, I promise. We are also working internally for inventory of our assets for IT. In addition to that, we're also working with Kim and auditing not just mine, but also the entire company's assets. We're looking to do that. It's going to be
Starting February 1st.
it's going to be fun. So,
You got a very low sense of humor.
and lastly, I promise this is going to be a good one. Mike, come here. He wasn't expecting this. So Mike is our IT support specialist. He just passed his 6 months with us, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about to congratulate him. He just passed his probationary period with the BPW and showed significant improvement since beginning. This improvement has given me confidence in entrusting Mike to oversee some critical components of the BPW infrastructure. Mike has taken over the O&M of Zoom phones and meetings. This includes, but is not limited to, assisting the end users with quality control and reliability. Mike is also overseeing end user workstation software and hardware patching. This patching helps us against vulnerabilities from outside threat actors and software stability for normal operations. Mike has also made significant strides in his knowledge of GIS, GPS. Mike can collect GPS data accurately to import into our GIS system, our software for maintenance. One of the most recently tasks was field verifying Lewes Waterfront Preserve, new community off of New Road. One of the most recent tasks, oh wait, no, I already said that. Sorry. This information goes a long way in improving the BPW documentation of the community. I would like to thank the board, management, and the entire BPW staff for all the support, cooperation, giving me the opportunity to onboard this key position to this department. Mike's potential to grow will certainly allow myself to continue with the management and capital projects, to work with management and on capital projects that incorporate and or pertinent information technology as BPW grows with the community. So thank you. I had to write it all down. Thank you.
It's been amazing since you've been on board, so I really appreciate it.
Nice job.
If the board has any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
Sharon, you have anything?
Yeah.
All right. For the financials, we have a doozy of a bunch here. We got November, December, year to date, Q3, and we have our cash graphs.
Which one do you want to start with?
November, from the beginning. On line 2, commercial, sewer DRBA is still down substantially. And I kind of put in a little note in there of maybe doing another adjustment. Line 5 for Board of Public Works is the filter cleaning. We're still about $300 off of there. Line 10, people are starting to put their time into stormwater when they're doing tasks. So yay, we're gonna start accurately tracking that. Line 12, repairs and maintenance.
Just to back line 6 at 15, the other revenue, what was that?
It's just all the projects.
So like if we bill out, for example, we did work for the lodge, not the lodge, historic Lewes, Dutchman's Harvest, looking at moving a pole line. So if we receive anything on that,
Okay.
if we do it internally.
Anything development that's not a normal bill. Line 12, repairs and maintenance. Chemicals were up. They usually run between 35 and 40,000. It looks like they did an order at the very beginning of the month and the end of the month. So it looks like they did one more order than usual. Line 13, professional and contractual. Water engineering fees were up for water model mapping and then the main assessment. Line 14, other supplies and expenses. We had the safety and service awards, and we had an unusual purchase of traffic cones. Line 24, I decreased all the impact fees. Water and sewer are doing good, but electric still did not meet in November. And line 27, we had a gain of almost 216,000 on change in market value.
And that has changed how much today?
It's in December.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we move on to December.
Give it and take it away.
Line 2 is DRBA again, and there was also an adjustment to Lewes Waterfront Preserve. We were charging them what we think would be average of what they're using. And then we actually got the logs and we did a adjustment of about $1,600. And that was almost all irrigation.
We were waiting for the meters to come in, so they put in a worst case scenario, and then they gave us a log of when the stuff was turned on, when it was turned off, when they pulled. So if you can remember, they actually hit a water main during I believe it was a gas installation. So the entire water main was down. So they ended up buying bulk water from down on Schley Avenue. So we have that record as well. So we combined it all in.
Line 5, same thing for filter cleaning. This time we're only off like $270, so 10% better than last month. Revenue other, sewer is actually lower than budget, but water is doing great. When we get bills for the developments, we actually go line through line of what's water, what's sewer. So if there's more emphasis on water, sewer usually does worse. If there's more emphasis on sewer, water usually does worse.
So going back to the chemicals, since it looked like we bought twice as much in November,
One order more.
one order more,
Right. Know what you meant.
wouldn't we have expected this to be way
So
down?
chemicals are at where we expect them to be, between 35 to 40.
No, you're looking at filter cleaning, not chemicals.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Water for-
You're right. I'm sorry. I got lost there.
For line 12, yes.
Yeah.
Chemicals the chemicals were at 36,000 as opposed to 53 the month before. Purchase power, it was higher than normal usage. If you actually look at our electric revenues, they're all up, plus the 10% increase that we got a few months ago. Wages and salaries is a stormwater again. Line 11, utilities, electric and sewer for this month, where those departments were using more than budgeted utilities. But water is doing very well. And then line 12, we just kind of went over. Line 13, professional contractual. There was a big bill from Harry Caswell. They were doing work on a few different streets for testing and piping and getting coupons.
For the water main assessment, we're probably going to submit for reimbursement through the state. Mm-hmm.
And then also there were a couple other smaller charges for impact fee consultation, and then the engineering fees again being higher. And line 22, our interest and dividend income is usually higher for December because we get all of our payouts at the end of calendar year. I did email UBS, and since then they have responded back and they said it's almost solely based on our balance being substantially different than last year. And line 27, we have almost $101,000 loss. And if we go to year to date, everything is pretty smoothed out. There's only 3 things that I pulled out, which was the wages and salaries for stormwater, which we've already talked about, professional and contractual services, which we've also talked about, Harry Caswell, and engineering and legal. And then line 27 is a loss of $773,000.
Austin, what's the timing of going through our plans as far as expenditures on, roads, development, whatever we ever do, and also the the assessment on our rates? What's the timing of those two things?
So right now, we're finishing up budget. Hopefully, we try and get that out the end of this month, beginning of next month. Our idea was to set up some sort of budget workshop, whether you want us to present the initial budget in February, set up a budget workshop in March, and then vote on it actually at the March meeting, or have a workshop to present the budget and then vote on it in March. We've done it both ways in the past, but we can do it either way. Our plan was to have everything ready to discuss sometime in the beginning of February. The only caveat would be the water main assessment is still being buttoned up. So there are some assumptions based off what we know that may shift a little bit. But again, some of them are placeholders. And obviously the decision on the wastewater treatment plant, and also the decision of how the Army Reserve plays out, because we're looking at 5-year plan. So at some point in there's going to be costs associated with each one.
Well, it would seem like doing the workshop first. We should give time before we actually approve it to resolve any questions that come up. Would make sense. Is that the
Sooner the better. Yes.
We can do it depending on when the decision on the date for the wastewater treatment plant. We can just kill it all, 2 birds, 1 stone, have budget workshop, and then go into wastewater treatment plant as well, or vice versa. We can schedule them separately too. Either way, we can make it work.
okay?
All right, for Q3, for our comparison of last year, our revenues are up 790,000. But our operating expenses are also up 929, which resulted in a decrease in our operating income. Our non-operating revenues are up over $500,000, which has increased our total bottom line by 416,000. The variances from budget, we've kind of went over and all the rest of them, but to pull out a couple, the utilities for sewer, they're using almost 25% more than last year. And we actually had a gain overall and change in market value in Q3. And then on other notes, DRBA continues to show exceptionally low usage, anywhere from 65 to 80% lower water usage. And change in market value over the last 4 quarters is a loss of 1.2 million.
Sooner the better.
And then just for the cash drafts, I've shown that our fees and change in market value are almost $1 million of a difference than our interest income. And then what we have withdrawn money for capital projects. And February is usually a tight month for a couple big DMAC bills, and then also our wastewater treatment plant, big payment. So sometimes we do pull out money there, and we did last February, but I don't think we should this year.
Yeah, the wastewater treatment plant payment in February, and then we have usually
2 in a row
Yeah, we get
of
that.
high.
We walk into like the billing cycles are off because we're being billed from DMAC from beginning of month to beginning of month, but we bill our bills middle of the month to middle of the month. So these most recent bills that got out, we paid DMEX bills for December 1 through the 30th, which was that very cold spell. But our most recent bills that were sent out were middle of November to middle of December. So actually next month's bills will reflect the high usage that we paid for this month.
Thank you.
Anything else, Kim?
No, that's it.
Austin?
Nope.
Okay. So then we move on to new business. Open forum, general discussions for the proposal from 120 Water for lead and copper assistance.
So I will introduce, so this is Samantha. She's from 120 Water. We actually had a meeting with her with GMB as well. So what we're looking at is, and I may be stealing a little bit of the show here, is that in October of 24, the new lead and copper rules go into effect. It's a little bit more that we have to do on the utility. It's a lot more than what we've had to do in the past. We just completed our most recent lead and copper testing, and Chris submitted all the information for it. So we're good up until this change in 24. In 24, we have to be able to identify and show and meet certain requirements that are coming forth. And Samantha's going to go into those. And what Samantha does is she provides a product that helps us get there with not being able to have all the staff to be able to identify every service within the city.
Cool. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Sam Booklet from 120 Water. Thank you for having me this evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Like Austin said, I'm going to chat with you a little bit about the lead copper rule revisions. Am I able to see it while it's up there or no? If not, that's okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure. So as you mentioned, the revisions are a drastic change from the lead copper rule that they've been complying with for the past 30 years or so. So that was really sampling focused. You're sampling every 3 years, most likely, and that's kind of all you have to do with lead and copper. Go to the next one. Under these revisions that EPA has implemented, one of the biggest requirements that they've put on you all as utility is the requirement to develop a location-based service line inventory by October 16th, 2024. So that's really the foundation of this entire rule. They want to see a fully mapped out version of the system, every single service line indicated, tied to a physical address, and then the materials of that service line indicated. So not something that most utilities have information on currently, not something that has ever been required. So that is kind of the foundation of everything that they're looking for with this rule, and it is the first piece of compliance that is due. So we're working towards that October 2024 date. Big picture wise, there are other requirements that go along with these revisions. There are updates in your requirements for lead service line replacements. There are updates to your regular compliance sampling with your action and trigger levels, the locations that you sample, and there's some additional sampling at schools and daycares. All of that stuff kind of kicks off in 2024. So it is really crucial to get that inventory in place and finalized prior to that point, because it provides you with the information that you will need in order to plan and execute on the remainder of those compliance pieces in 2024 and beyond. Oh, sorry, can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. So service line inventory is kind of our focus for the time being. It's what you want to really put your energy, effort, and attention into between now and 2024. The first piece of that is going to be a development of kind of your preliminary inventory or your records-based inventory. What information do we have in-house that can show us some clue into the system and what our service lines are and what that material is? That's kind of where we start with you as a utility and get that type of stuff organized for you, start to get a clear picture of what exists in the system based on the information you have. You can layer in some additional data. Next step is actually verifying anything you don't know. Anything we don't have a record on, we have to go out and get some information on. Can be visual, physical verification. We can work with residents to get their side verified and things like that. And then lastly, as we head into 2024 and that compliance deadline, we want to be able to prepare, package up all of this data and report out on it to the state and EPA in the specific format that they want to see it in. So that's kind of our three buckets of operations there. Underlying all of that is an element of communication with state stakeholders, EPA, and naturally with residents. This is something they will be hearing about. You may be asking for their assistance at some point throughout the process. So kind of communicating and educating with them around what the rule is and the work you guys are doing for compliance. As we head into 24, there are additional communication requirements on how you need to report to residents on what you found in your inventory. Go to the next.
I had a question. You said the date of 2024, and then there's a 3-year up there, and on a previous slide it said 2021. Is that to say that 3-year will expire on October?
So go back.
So go right there. See there it says December 21. Is that when it went into effect? So are you saying 3 years from that date, or when you go to the next slide it says next one right there, sidelines within 3 years of final rule publication? Is that date?
That,
Okay.
that publication date,
Okay.
sorry.
So it's not 2027 is not the
No,
the 2024. Okay.
That would be a little more feasible. No, they kind of snuck this one in while everyone was dealing with a lot of other COVID stuff, and the timeline is incredibly tight. Even if you had started day one of publication of that rule, it's a lot of work to get done in a relatively short amount of time. when we're thinking about where does 120 Water come in? So we are a software platform and services company exclusively to help utilities manage and report on the lead and copper rule revisions. So with all of these demands that are being put on you as a utility, more access to your data, the ability to kind of collaborate with that data across your utility, and then the ability to communicate and share that data out to residents, to the state, and to the EPA. We are that all-in-one centralized data platform to build, manage, and report on not only your inventory, but the rest of compliance down the road. So organizing and automating sampling, customer communications, things like that. But for the sake of our conversation today and your kind of thought track for the next 3 years, it's an organized place to manage, build that inventory, and be able to report out on it for compliance in 24.
And I remember when we discussed this, it has to be public, correct?
It does, yeah. So for you guys and your population size, you don't need to put it on your website. You could, larger utilities have to, but it does need to be submitted digitally each year. And if someone comes down to the office, you need to be able to show them digitally the inventory information.
And I've seen it. I've seen a couple of utilities that actually do it where they have a link that goes to a GIS map and it shows which areas are predictive lead or are known as lead and shows like year installed, yada, yada, yada.
So is your software to help us track, or is your software also helping us identify?
Yeah, so the software itself is mostly tracking, but the services and what we provide also helps you identify. So if you want to go to the next one, I'll kind of focus on just the inventory piece here. The software is where all of that inventory information will live, but we do support your actual verification efforts. One, through prioritizing it through predictive modeling, and two, through actually executing on some of that verification through sending out customer surveys, lead swab.
So how would you identify it? What are some of the ways that you identify problems?
Yeah, so if you want to go to the next one.
I keep on, sorry.
I'm gonna go off course. We're gonna start with the records naturally, right? We're gonna utilize all the information that we have or you all have on hand that can give us some type of clue as to what is located where, what its materials are, what the dates are. From there, we basically organize and prioritize all of the unknown lines in the system. We know what we know, and then we can have a big bucket of what we don't know. Those are our question marks. Within those question marks, we can run some predictive modeling using the information we had on the known lines to essentially assign a likelihood or a probability of lead or galvanized, which are kind of our problem lines, to those unknowns. And then that will help us determine what our strategies are going to be for verifying lead. Some of it's going to be physically taking a look at a line, potholing, digging, visually inspecting it. For the homeowner side, the private side of the line, which is, I find for most utilities and for you guys as well, that's the gap. Like, you don't own it. It's not something you've installed. It's not something you've ever been required to track. It's kind of just a blank. We typically utilize customer surveys or lead swab kits that we manage the program within our platform. We automate the sends of those things out to residents. They can fill out a survey, very straightforward. Your information on your house, the date it was built, if you know your line, that is valid for the EPA. They send it back to us. We kind of QA/QC it and update the inventory accordingly.
Mind you, the new, not only are you're kind of moving from the responsibility of what we own as the Board of Public Works, and then you start to get into the customer side, so having to know both sides. And then there's discussions of after that, whether or not the EPA is going to start, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of the most political way to do it, shifting the ability to replace that onto the utility company, and then how that's being funded. Did I say that?
Yeah, I feel like that was good. That was very politically correct. So the way it's written now, I think everyone's question is like, whose problem is this and how it's going to pay for? When it comes to replacements, that is where we are seeing the bulk of the federal and state funding is heavily focused on replacement. They kind of said inventory, figure it out and let us know what you have. And then we'll help you replace it. When it comes to private side replacement, as of right now, your compliance requirement ends with identifying the line and informing the resident of what their line is. Hey, you live at 123 Main Street, you have a lead line. You have to offer to do the work to replace it, but it is at the homeowner's cost. I don't know how many people are going to say, hey, I would love to spend X $1,000, please replace my line. Probably some, probably not some others. That is where we are seeing the bulk of that federal money focused for people who can't or are not willing to pay for it. The goal is to get the lead out of the ground. So they want to fund some of those projects.
Is it needs based or how do they decide that?
For recipients of funding.
Yeah.
So there is a section of, needs-based underserved communities, but I found in Delaware, especially within the state revolving fund, like the team that heads that up, they are funding the vast majority of their projects. So I think those take some precedence, but there's a good amount of federal money trickling down to manage these replacements. It's not exclusively underserved communities.
And just so everybody knows, Charlie, we've talked about it and we've actually submitted for assistance and it was low interest. That's all it was. There was no subsidy. I don't know how it's going to be looked at. It's new. And the one challenge that we have in Lewes is that the MHI is high. And so the subsidy isn't really, we don't reign high on there because of our MHI. And that's one of the biggest criteria within their scoring. So how that changes and how that matrix changes over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years could kind of lean one way or lean the other way.
So our records, how far back do they go with quality for the type of materials and locations? I mean, obviously 1950, we probably have nothing, but when do we start getting good data?
I think combined from what GMB has and what we have in old records, I think we have a decent amount. I think there's probably pockets that we don't know exactly, and that's where the predictive modeling is going to come in. I think the biggest challenge, and we're starting to do it now more so, is making sure that we know from the main, obviously what the main is, and the service line to the curb stop. But then beyond the curb stop, and we do it on every project, we make sure that we notify if it's galvanized or lead, we let them know.
And put it into our GIS database or put it into some sort of database?
Yeah, and they're noted on the as-built as well.
Okay. Well, good, then we're not as far behind as some other communities that have no.
But as we move forward, how quick 2022 went. You're only about a year and a half away from being at 2024. So having the entire map, ready and able to be submitted by October 16th of 2024 is not far.
Oh, yeah. But
yeah,
I mean, you take an old city where they've not touched the lines in the ground.
Season 6.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I would say from our conversations, you're in a very good starting point. There are definitely people, like you're saying, that we speak with that have nothing to start with. You have some information and you're actively collecting as you go, which is massive. If you want to skip to the next one. Where that's going to be really, really useful for you all as a system is to be able to feed into that predictive modeling. So rather than just saying, hey, we have this big black hole of unknowns, we don't really know where to start. All we know is we don't know anything about them. This gives you a guideline and gives you a prioritized workflow to utilize as we're going out and validating it. If you can look at it on the screen here, it really identifies not only those pockets of town, because you probably already know some of the pockets of town, right? We know what's older, we know what was put in first, we know what's newer. This really goes line by line and home by home and assigns a true percentage of lead or galvanized likelihood to that line. So we know anything in the red, we want to go out there and validate that first and foremost. That way we can, one, notify the resident, get it into our inventory, but two, we know that's a problem. We know we're going to want to replace it at some point. We can start planning efficiently and effectively for some of that replacement work as well.
Is testing the water efficient, or do you actually need to get in and look at piping? How would it work? So
there has been some sampling, like 1st and 9th liter, that you can use as kind of a clue. It's not currently an accepted validation method through the state or the EPA. So they really want to see either visually, take a look at the line itself. If you guys are out there doing work, take a look at it that way. Or then for the private side, filling out a survey, homeowner filling it out, that's fine. Or if they, it's coastal, so not always a ton of basements, but if they go into their basement and swab the exposed pipe coming into the home, take a photo.
And the customer would be asked to do that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we can kind of automate through our platform is we'll build them into a verification program. We'll send out surveys or swab kits. If you want to skip to the next one, I think it shows them.
Unless
online.
you're volunteering.
I can get you a
For
swab
some
kit.
people, you'd have to, you know?
It's very straightforward how we send them out. The tech swabs, it's detailed instructions, right? You don't want people getting this being like, what do I do? Step-by-step instructions. There's a QR code with a video on how to do it. We find the surveys are very easy. We get a relatively high response rate on those. Tech swabs are, I think, more appropriate for lines where we feel like this one is probably lead. We need to get an answer. We already know what ours is. We don't want to spend the money to pothole. Let's send a $20 swab kit to this person and our team walks them through how to do it as opposed to going out there and digging their yard up to figure out what we probably already know that it's probably a problem.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but to answer, part to your question, Earl, sampling water is marginal because if you have the stable oxide layer, then you're not going to detect the water. The Flint, Michigan case was you destabilize the oxide layer, and then they had it. So it's not necessarily a good indicator of what the line is.
So is going in and swabbing it the best way to do it, or?
Yeah, visually looking at the pipe or swabbing the outside of the pipe, because you're exactly right. If your corrosion control and your treatment is working, which it is, right? Your water is good. You don't have problems with your sampling. Those samples are all going to come back great. You don't have lead in the water, which is true. You don't have lead in the water, but that doesn't mean there's not lead or galvanized in the pipes. Cool. So giving a little bit more of a walkthrough, we go through the records, we get all of that into our platform. We get your kind of preliminary inventory set up. That's our preliminary mapped out version. So you can kind of kick off your mapping at that point. If you guys wanted to put it on your site at that point at preliminary inventory, you can. People can go on and request a survey, request a swab kit, give us information that can kind of get people involved that way. If not, we go through predictive modeling and get to this point. We're operating private side verifications. Your team or set you up with a contractor is also doing public side verifications to physically look at it. If you want to jump to the next one. And it is getting put into kind of a location asset record within the 120 water platform. So once we get all of your service line locations uploaded to our platform, we create a location record for them. All of their service line inventory is managed in there. Their assets are dictated by the public side, the private side, the fitting, if we have it. Their lat long is in there. And then if you look, it's a little hard at the top, but every other kind of contact or resource we may have associated with that location is organized in there as well. So as we think about communicating with these residents, notifying them if they are served by a lead line, it's not a very tight timeline to notify them right now, but in 2024, that timeline drops to 24 hours between you finding a lead line and that customer needing to be notified. So we can automate that through here. As soon as a line is identified, we automate that letter out to them, and you can track the fact that you've met that compliance timeline. You have a record of all the communications you've sent to them. Under your activities would show any verification or any replacements that were done. Your sample results will show in there and all of that. So it's a really quick at a glance way to not only see where you are in the compliance process, but also be able to report out on it to the state that you are meeting these requirements and doing so in a timely manner. If you want to go to the next one. This is ultimately the public transparency dashboard mapping that you were alluding to before. You can put this on your website. This is what you can show to residents, but ultimately this is what you want to report to the state and the EPA in 24. So it's a fully mapped out version of the system. You can zoom in, see your neighborhood, your street, your house, what your materials are on either side. And then every physical address is listed with the materials on either side broken out as well. And if you go one more. Oh, I took it out. I apologize. But just important to know, it's all your data, right? So we are building it in this platform because it is purpose built for inventory in that reporting format. It is all your data. We have a direct connection with GIS. We can integrate that data directly back into your GIS to live long-term where it probably needs to live for the efficiency of the system. But for the sake of compliance, it's built in here.
So asking you to look into your crystal ball. So
My
I
favorite.
recognize this is all the current regulations.
Yeah.
And it's strictly the service line.
Yeah.
But there's been so much discussion about inside the house lead-based solders, Admiralty brass, and that. What are your thoughts of where that's going to go? And would this be, have you looked at integrating that into here?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my best thought or advice on, what is going to happen in the future, of course, we don't know, but as much information as you can capture throughout this process to future-proof yourself for anything else that might come, the better, right? If you're already looking at these lines, if you're already down in the ground and you already have a screen open that allows you to input information on a line, put as much of it in there as you can. Put the gooseneck, put the fitting, put both sides of the line. Like fitting's not required right now, just both sides of the line are, but if you can look at it and you can put it in there, that's going to set you up ultimately to future-proof your long-term inventory. Inside of the house, I don't know about that stuff. That's a question mark for me too. But I would say be as detailed and as specific as you can, and this does support the management of that data as you go through it.
And this just follows suit because we originally, last month we discussed the cross connection control plan. Again, that's being pushed down through the EPA, through the state, and now to us. Now we're going through and doing the lead and copper, which is being pushed down from the EPA to the state to us. I think there's one of the biggest things that has been mentioned is maybe up to the first valve inside the house for a replacement. You make an interesting point because, if it stops there, then, originally it's always been to the curb stop or the property line. And then we're working our way into the first valve in the house. And then at what point does it become the entirety of the house become an issue? It's to be determined.
Yeah, because I mean, and I'm probably dating myself here, but going back 40 years is when the codes changed that you couldn't use lead solder and that brass had to have low lead content.
Sure.
So, it's been mulling around for, 40 years now and just wondering where it's going in the future. And it is completely outside of, okay.
And I would just mention to add to it is that, others that are doing this through 120 Water are Sussex County, Selbyville, Long Neck, and Rehoboth so far.
You beat me to the punch. I was going to ask a referral list.
Ready.
Oh,
You
gosh.
can add Seaford. I just left them this morning and they signed on.
Seaford.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead, Richard.
What entity is responsible for meeting these regulations? Is it BPW? Is it the city and BPW? Is it, and the extent of what, whoever the entity is, that they're responsible for? If it's BPW, is it all of BPW's infrastructure in town and out of town?
Yes, and it's BPW. Just like any normal lead and copper sampling that we do, it's us that's doing the sampling. We're the ones that are submitting to the state, and the state is signing off one way or another.
And are there any, is there any infrastructure that is outside of our responsibility that falls in some sort of no man's land of it's not part of BPW and it's not part of the city? It pre-existed or some other irregularity? Is that possible?
Well, I guess the piggyback. Am I on?
Nope.
You were on.
Technology.
We're gonna need some like,
Don't mess with the audio.
To piggyback off of that, I think, this would also, the regulation also applies to private utilities, right?
Yes.
Right. So what you have municipal utilities, but you also have private utilities. And between the two, everybody's subject to the regulations, depending on what your asset is.
Yeah.
So there's a clear distinction between the public and the private. There's not going to be a fist fight over, oh no, that's mine, that's yours.
I I think the way that it stands right now is that from what we know as of today through the EPA's regulations, I think there's a clear delineation. What they decide in the future, we'll tackle that at that time.
Yeah,
The only
it's a
thing
different
that
issue.
Richard's question raises, and it does not apply to us, but outside of the city limits, a private utility, someone could be on well water. And is a person on well water with it doesn't have any tie to any entity covered by these rules?
They're not required to inventory because they're not connected to any utilities infrastructure.
I mean, it doesn't apply to us anyway, but
It was just kind of the question, is there any category that hasn't been identified that kind of doesn't fall into BPW's domain or a private utilities domain?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
This change any of the scope for Donovan Smith? Would we go further into that process or?
Well, so I think that the Donovan Smith would be, I mean, they would be treated as the public versus private. So just as we're talking typical laterals, if your lateral, doesn't matter whether your lateral is long or short or whatnot, if it's a private lateral, it's a private lateral. And so then that's what we get into the conversation of who's responsible for what, private versus the utility. But it's still the utility provides up and then they have their private system, if that makes sense.
Don't we have some responsibility to test inside the home if we can?
For inventory or for your like regular water sampling?
Inventory or sampling?
So for your inventory, it doesn't need to be inside the home. It is just on their private sideline. So typically like your curb stop to the house, whatever runs under their driveway or their front yard or whatever, getting the water from the street to the home, that section of line.
yeah, but I think what Earl's referring to is the yearly test that we do of about a dozen households where we send out sample kits.
It's
That's inside the house.
every 3 years, and that sampling is, again, you're sampling the water that's inside the home.
Right.
You're not sampling off of your system in theory, because
Understood.
they can't use the water overnight. And then when they have to take the first sample out of the tap in the morning, and that's what you use for your sample. It does beg, because right now the way that it's set up is you essentially have to know both your side, which is the BPW owned system, and you need to know the private side connection into your system.
Because that one would fall within, like I was describing, lead solder,
Yeah.
Admiralty brass, because the water has been sitting in the lines and,
I will say, as you get to 2024 and beyond, looking beyond inventory being completed, the sampling is changing a little bit. Where if you have what they're going to call tier 1, but you have known lead lines that you're sampling in the home, those will now require a first and a 5th liter sample bottle. So you're filling up 5 liters of water, sampling the first one and sampling the last one. Purpose or goal of that being to get a more clear indication of where, if any, issues / lead exists on the line. So that would give a more clear delineation of, was this in the home or was this out in the service system?
So did I understand that this is really for lead now? But who knows what they want copper in 2 years or whatever. So while we're out there checking all this stuff, why don't we check everything?
Right. And I guess that's to my point of kind of future
I mean,
proofing it, be as specific as possible when you are indicating what the line is. Like the requirements are, lead, non-lead, galvanized. You want to indicate, be as specific as you can with that answer.
But if you're sending something out to the homeowner, why not include everything? What do you have lead? Do you have galvanized? Do you have copper? Do you have?
Endorsing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the survey as it is, I mean, it was on there, but it has multiple check boxes for, do you have PVC, you have lead. you have
Okay,
copper,
good.
you
Yeah.
have-
No, that's my,
most homeowners will not know what's in the walls. And just because you have a brass old sink in the kitchen doesn't mean that that's where they're sampling from. It could be from a new sink in a powder room. So, in the house gets to be very, very complex.
You haven't seen.
Well, I
those
understand
on
that,
real
but
estate
some people
disclosures,
might
right?
know.
What's that?
And why
Those
not?
aren't typical on like a real estate disclosure, right? Like lead work.
Okay.
Good question. Could they take pictures of something and send it to us? Is that acceptable in some way?
They can, yeah. We have, not, they could send it to you all. That is something that we offer as well. Like a lot of people will do the survey with a QR code that will then allow them to scan the QR code and send us a photo.
Do you have a standard, like, for example, around here, we have a lot of old homes, say like, if your home was built before X date, likely you have lead pipes, so therefore you should be checking?
So it's not as standard as I would like that to be across the board. In state, it's a little more standardized. What we typically do is from that preliminary inventory, we'll have a better clue from your specific records. Okay, we've seen homes in this town. This is kind of our date where it's really heavy before this. It's a lot lighter after it. So there's not kind of an across the board 1942 answer or anything like that. But once we get through preliminary inventory, that will be a factor into organizing those percentages and predictive modeling. That's okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Richard?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very informative.
So you can sit on this for a month and think about it, or you can vote on it. The proposal that's in front of you is an all-encompassing proposal for us. One-time fee of $1,500, but after that, I believe it's $17,000 for 2 additional years.
Yeah, so the
Each year.
first year will be that higher 18.5. And then after that, the 1,500 drops off, so it's that 17 for the subsequent 2 years.
The pleasure of the board. You have a motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we accept it.
You have a second?
I'll second.
What were the prices? 1,500 now and
It's 18,500. There's a one-time fee of 1,500, and then the 2 subsequent years, it's the 3-year contract, would be $17,000 a piece. Annually.
Wait. So the first year is 18.5.
18.5,
The next year would be 17.
and then the next year would be 17.
Okay. Yeah.
okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So it's 4, 1 absent.
Professional contractual budget.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item on the agenda is discussion of solicitation of candidates for the upcoming election.
You have the posting for the election will happen on what started the candidates. It'll be Presley seat up and Tom Owen seat. The notice will be in the paper on Friday. They can file as of February 1st, and then they can go up until April 6th. It is a month ahead of time before the city can, but we did change our charter when they did. And then we just keep going from there. Sharon and I have been updating the looking for the people that have moved or have passed away, but that is a challenge. It's taking some time. So we've gotten probably about 30 or 40% done so far. So we are updating those records. And if anybody passes away before or after we're done those letters, we're sorry.
Hopefully none of us. Yep. Any questions?
And then you all have the timeline too of what everything goes, and it'll be in the paper 3 times total. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Open discussion, general forum on the replacement of the valves and pumps for pump station 3, as Mike introduced to begin with.
Hi, Mike. So Mike and I are going to tag team this. So when we had our capital budget meeting earlier this month, Mike had let us know that the issue is they're both self-priming pumps right now. I believe pump 1 is in lead and pump 2 is running simultaneously, or running as a high flow pump when the high alarm kicks on. it theoretically should turn on. The self-priming function of that pump is not in use, and the valves are both seized up. They're seized obviously in the open position. So it begs a very, it creates an emergency situation that we would need to get all the valves replaced, and we would need to get both pumps replaced. That currently is probably your second to third largest pump station. We put the bypass valves in place ahead of time, so that if something were to happen within the station, we have the ability to bypass the station. It's not the best of situations because the actual wet well is in the center of the road, which means you would have to do a lane shift or a lane closure. But it does help alleviate the situation should something happen. But obviously we want to get this repaired quick, timely, so that station can remain in function and be reliable. Mike, did I miss anything?
I don't think so, and obviously lead times are long right now, so, even if a decision's made tonight, you're looking at best case scenario, probably 12 weeks, but they're not committing to anything, so I got between 8 and 16 weeks from the one vendor and 18 weeks from the other vendor.
So it begs the question is that we're at the point that if one pump fails, the other one cannot physically, so it's not self-priming. So somebody has to come in, manually prime it and get it up and running.
They're obsolete, so there's no repair.
Originally, we tried to economically repair it by having the T8 pump. I think it's their T8s, right? Gorman Rupp T8s is actually replacing essentially the whole pump with internals. The rotating assemblies, they are obsolete. You cannot get them.
Sorry, yeah, we thought we identified, or our vendor thought they identified a rotating assembly that would work, but we got them and they wouldn't fit in. So they took them back. So Hills gave us a turnkey proposal of it's
6 roughly.
yes, 86,000. So that includes the 2 pumps, 2 check valves, and 2 discharge valves
With labor.
with labor turnkey. That's everything. Motors installed. So I don't have an equivalent installed. I have an equivalent equipment from Envirorep TLC, and just for the pumps, check valves, not including the discharge valves, it was 68,500. So backing out the labor and discharge valves from Hill's quote, so like for like, it would be 64,000 for the Summit pumps from Hills and 68,500 for the Gorman Rupp pumps from Envirorep TLC.
And
So-
your opinion of the quality of the 2 sets of pumps?
Yeah, they're equivalent. They're equivalent.
And Charlie has reviewed this as well. Obviously, we've kept them in the loop with everything that we're doing too. But obviously, as we're sitting here having this discussion, the supply chain is one of the biggest thing that's driving this as well, because again, with the situation that we have currently set up, where the valves are no longer operational and you have one pump that's not self-priming, should something happen, we have the ability to continue operation. It doesn't look pretty because the wet well is in the center of the road, but there's obviously a need to move forward and get this done. I think the goal was to keep it so that we could use it as part of, the headworks package and all that. But it, from a time frame perspective, and you're talking 3 months to get it out to bid, it puts us in a position to where we could essentially have everything installed by the time that even gets out to bid. And then you get into the DelDOT traffic safety issues. Should they do fail, you have to maintain that for an allotted amount of time of 12 weeks.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to move forward with a repair.
Before we put this into motion, are there other things we should be doing while we're doing this at that location?
I think
Because I know there's different size piping and all kinds of different things out there. Is there something else we should be doing?
I personally, and Charlie and Mike, you can attest to this. I think This gets us to a point where we can address those things. The pumps and the piping, I don't think is necessarily an issue at all in this situation. If we want to upgrade electrical, if we want to put a generator there, that can be done in the future.
And the control panels and so on.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you.
You just said that like about lower customer responsible for lowering the wet well, like that's gonna be done in-house.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we have the bypass pump, so we'll be able to use that, but it is gonna be, there is gonna be difficulty with traffic control. But that.
well, we'll probably, and we'll work with Charlie's team, but we'll probably have to do a DelDOT permit during the repair. But again, if you're looking at 12 weeks, we're ahead of the summer season, which
Pretty important.
is another piece to the pie.
Yeah, so I mean, this being critical because of supply chain, time constraints, we're down to not having a second operable self-starting pump and lane shifting and the impacts on DelDOT is why we're addressing it this way. I have a motion.
Why am I the only one?
Well, because I
Get
can't.
things moving. I'll make a motion that we do it. I mean, it's a very important thing to do.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 4, 1 absent. Thank you, Mike. Okay. To our next problem child. Open forum, general discussion on AC Schultes to reline well number 3.
Okay, so as many of you know, well 3 and well 1 were both taken. Well 3 was taken out of service, and it was actually cambered. The pump was taken out. It's standard. We've done that in the past. We want to make sure that all of the wells are in good shape. And as we did that, we actually started to witness some sand being drawn from that well, as we did with well 1. What ended up happening is when we TV'd it, it showed that we had some pinhole leaks within the casing, which was drawing sand, and sand is never good within your system. So we moved forward with well 1. We wanted to get 1 up and running. And 3 is systematically number 2. We want to get that one up. 3 is a lot bigger. And so we explored the idea of actually drilling a new well. I don't think financially it makes too much sense because production wise, they're not too far off. The biggest thing as it currently stands, that well is actually 150 feet deep, while well 1 is 100 feet deep because they capped the second aquifer. So right now they would put 150 foot line or 150 foot casing in 75 feet of stainless steel screen. And we'd bring that one back up. What they'll do is they'll end up, and they're doing it with well 1 now, they'll weld everything, they'll put it down, they'll run the test, they'll size the pump, and then obviously we bring it up online. So that would basically mean we would have well 1 and well 3 back up in line. AC Schultes is the contractor. They have been doing our well service work for 20, 30 plus years. They service just about everybody's well here in Delaware. They're over in Maryland. Tremendous guys. They've been there in time of need. So it's a good outfit.
So it's going to have 2 sets of screens, so it'll be
One
equivalent.
screen, one long screen.
One long screen.
Yes.
And we span the 2 screens there.
At 150 feet deep.
I'm gonna ask the same
And-
question. Is there anything else we should be doing while we're doing this, while we're?
Yes, well, we'll do the water tower, and the common header pipe is the future project. And what we've been doing just to make sure and to confirm this is that we brought on Eric Wharton, who previously was with us. He came back. We've been systematically checking at the treatment facility, the screens, to make sure that we don't have any other sand coming in. And we're doing that because we're seeing this in well 1 and well 3. They're all installed relatively the same time. And it's just reaffirming that those look to be good, and we're still continuing to service them annually. So a little bit of good news there.
So it looks like from a design perspective, the well separate from the common header and the water tank and treatment plant can all be done separately, and those are bigger, longer range.
But I will tell you that we continually to do our analysis of each one of the wells. We need to continue to do that. It's this proactive approach is what we need to stick to. Those wells are in one of the best locations. We want to maintain that. And so, I'm going to start budgeting for maybe continuing to monitor and also look at lining as we move forward, so that when the tower and the common header go in and we implement maybe a liner every single year for the next 3 years, we have 5 brand new wells that are essentially lined. They got new pumps. You have a brand new tower and you have a brand new common header.
And we can decide whether we need a 6th well.
Yes.
At that point.
Yes.
Okay. A motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we accept the Schultes proposal for taking care of the well.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 4, 1 absent. Okay. So
Oh, he's, if you want to,
we,
I-
the
go ahead. Go ahead.
next item on the agenda is the AT&T pole attachment agreement. And is Robin?
I don't think, we didn't ask him to be on. I think he's choosing to be on, but
Dedication.
yeah. Just so everybody knows, he's in Disney World right now. But I believe Pete's gonna talk.
Yes.
So if you want to promote Pete,
And I'll introduce, if you want me to do that, Austin.
oh, thank you.
All right. So Pete, for the benefit of the board, some background here. This is the pole attachment agreement. If you recall, the board already considered and approved this very pole attachment agreement. When it was sent back to AT&T, they came back and said, yes, but, and here's some more questions that and revisions they wanted to come back with. So Pete and Robin have been doing the yeoman's work, going and working through these items. And what is in front of you is a revised document that reflects the staff's recommendation as to the revisions. One thing I will apologize, we sent this morning, you should have it now. There is this document that is a red line comparison that shows you exactly how the document that's in front of you tonight differs from the document that you previously approved. So all of the red line changes that are in front of you and reflect the changes that are proposed to be made. Otherwise, it's exactly as the board approved before. So we can do a couple things. If you had a chance to take a look at that, we can talk about it. We can answer questions. Alternatively, recognizing it's our fault, my fault, we didn't send it to you earlier. I'm also prepared to walk through top to bottom and highlight what the changes are. We can get questions. So it's whatever the board's pleasure.
And I will say that Robin also did a tremendous job putting together the notes that reflect each one of the changes. So he had noted each one of the changes and provided a note to it.
So I have a question. We have just like these 2.5 pages that say, here's what they want. And then the notes and then recommendation at the bottom. So are we saying that all of these recommendations have been included in this, the full? I didn't go back and look at everything. So
if you take a look at this form and what staff recommends, that's what's reflected in this document.
That's
It's
good.
the staff's recommendation.
the rest of it really we've approved anyhow
That's
before.
correct.
So
And let me, if I could, Pete, did I say anything incorrectly or would you add anything?
No, I think that's accurate. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think everything that Robin, when he went through and recommended that we leave as approved, we updated in the document. I'm just going through quickly here to see if there was anything that he marked as problematic that we didn't think was an issue. But no, it looks like, yeah, we made every change that was recommended by Robin. And then we reverted the AT&T years in Article 2.1 to make it consistent with the fiber tech agreement. They had requested 10-year periods with 5 automatic 5-year extensions. We went back to 5-year initial term, 4 5-year period extension periods, which is consistent with the fiber tech agreement.
So, what's the board's pleasure? You want Mike to go through each of the details?
I'm happy.
or-
I take ownership that we got it too late. So
No, my only question was to make sure that the recommendations that we got back were incorporated into the agreement. And so we've already approved the agreement before the recommendation. So
correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the whole attachment agreement, including the additional recommendations or changes.
Great.
Have a second?
A second, but I have a question.
Anything in here math wise that's materially different?
Just to clarify, so Richard seconded, and so now we're on discussion. No, I think that the big change, and Pete leaning on you on this, really goes to the term. So if you go to the exhibit, I mean, each individual substantive change, but math wise, to your point, Earl, the change pertains to exhibit A. And they wanted to clarify what prevailing rate was. If you recall, when the board approved it, there was 5 years at 270 and then 5 years at 270 or the prevailing rate. And so this clarifies what the intent of prevailing rate was, which is, as we talked about, was the per year rate suggested by the FCC for all recurring fees associated with small wireless facility pole attachments. Everything, I mean, there's insurance, gross negligence, willful misconduct, clarifications along those lines, but that gets to the money part. Pete, is that correct?
That's correct. I would also point out Articles 4.1 and 4.2. They wanted the commencement of paying the annual per attachment fee tied to the certificate of compliance certification date, which is identified in Exhibit B3. We also just added a term in 4.2 that Robin brought up a good point, because the way it's written, it says on or about the first day. I'm looking at Article 4.2, by the way. I believe that's page 7. So it says on or about the first day of each January, the BPW shall invoice licensee for the attachment fees. He identified a scenario where, say that the certificate of compliance certification date is, say, March 1st. Well, we wouldn't want to wait till the following January 1st for that invoice. So we just provided a clause at the bottom: notwithstanding the foregoing, the BPW shall send the first invoice within 30 days of the certificate of compliance certification date with the attachment fees and other charges assessed pro rata. So that just accounts for a scenario where January 1st isn't imminent and we need to invoice the licensee.
Is this the end of the negotiations? And if we agree to this, AT&T signs, or is this just the next step in going back that the board has reviewed the requested negotiations and this is our final offer?
It's a great question, Richard. And actually, so that Austin, I don't know, has AT&T, I know they've submitted their comments. There's been discussions. Do they understand our position? And then this is it, or to Richard's point, are we potentially coming back on one of these?
Robin, you can chime in if you're still on. I don't know if he is. I do not believe that they have signed off on the contract.
And what they've gotten these change.
I don't think.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm on vacation right now, but I thought I'd chime in. I assume AT&T is pretty much in line with what they wanted, but again, most of it, what we recommended, I assume they were going to be okay with. I cannot guarantee that. There was no final to saying, look, this is going to be it. We can make that clear. We can say, look, this is it. This is all we're going with. And if they don't like it, then they don't have to sign.
And to piggyback off of that, thank you, Robin. So one of the things that we're going to see more of these, as we know, which is why we got the form document. As we're working and tweaking the form on these questions, such as what Pete said on invoicing and having these conversations, staff is recommending the changes that we think make sense. Where we don't want to make changes. So, for example, they had come back and said, well, they originally wanted 60 days. And then they said, well, 45. And we've said it's 30. So, we have where we think that we should hold firm, we have held firm. And we also had a draft agreement come back where they completely tried to rewrite the agreement. We came back and said, we're not interested in doing that. So I think what you're going to find, and what the goal of this exercise is to get to a point where we can say, no, this is the form, this is standardized. And this is where it is. I think the unique piece here is that as we work on the form, we're identifying some things that actually do make sense. And that's what's in front of you today.
It's like a form developers agreement.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robin. Go back to enjoying Disney.
Say hello to Mickey.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Any other questions? So we have a motion, a second question. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Richard, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So it's 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Great job all the way around on that, by the way.
That's
Yes.
Robin and Pete and
I was just going to say, I'm sitting here in person, but it was Pete and Robin. So kudos.
And it's been a long time coming and a lot of rewrites. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pete.
Next on the agenda is open forum, general discussion on Pro Coat seal for the crack in the oxidation ditch at the wastewater treatment plant.
All right, so I know we've been going back and forth on this a couple of times. We, when we were out there, we actually identified another space another item that we wanted them to look at. They're working through that. I believe Josh had to recommend a product to them for that piece, and they were going to give a secondary quote for that. We don't have that yet. I believe he was scheduled to meet with them this week or next week, just due to moving forward and getting that taken care of. The idea was, and staff's recommendation was to approve up into an amount. I don't know what you think is a safe amount, Charlie, for it. I don't know what he's thinking it's going to be.
And just for the board's information, the piece that we're waiting on is for the crack in the splitter area.
It's where the two forms of concrete
oxidation ditches come together right under the walkway. So it's not a leak outside of the tank, but it's another crack in the concrete structure.
It's a horizontal crack as it goes.
It's not structural.
Yeah.
This one. It's not, that one is not structural. The other one is in the sidewall of the tank. The original proposal for the sidewall repair, we had 2 different prices. One was $18,700 to address it from the outside. One was $6,200 to address it from the inside, which is the direction that we recommend that we go with. As also mentioned, we're getting an updated proposal because the $6,200 one was received back in September. My gut is it's not going to change all that much, no more than 10%, I don't think, on the $6,200, but it's also going to include the repairs to the under the catwalk cracking. I would just to be safe, if you want to say 15,000, but I don't even think it's going to get anywhere near.
I would just leave it to your discretion.
That's perfectly fine, but I wanted,
I think
I'd cap it.
Have to give it
15.
$1 million.
How are the cracks being repaired?
We'll split it. We'll go to
We're going to
Disney.
dinner after this night.
We're going to go to Disney World.
Earl finally makes a motion for $1 million.
that was simply a
Yeah,
joke.
Question,
Yes,
how are the cracks being repaired?
they're going to be paired from the inside, and I think the process is they're going to drill almost like pilot holes, and then actually, yeah, that's option B.
It also has, Richard, along with the Flex Seal material, this is what we call Seeker product. we're actually putting in rebar like joints every so often in the cracks so that the new material will have something to adhere to along with the outside of the crack. So it's a whole structural repair. The one in the sidewall, the other under the catwalk repair will just be a material. It'll be a better material than what we use on, say, concrete curb repairs, but it's a similar like material to just get the cracked areas reconnected to one another.
So the first crack is going to be repaired from the outside, and it's just an outside repair, or is it involve draining the ditch in some way, or damming it so that it can be done from the inside?
So it's in the anoxic zone of the reactor, and I know we all been working with Mike on the procedure for bringing that part of the tank down to access it and repair the crack from the inside, which is less expensive for the contractor to do rather than to excavate down to the bottom of the tank from the outside, because
Right.
or so.
Yeah, and as we talked about, the exterior excavation also has other risks associated with it, because now you're getting down to the foundation of the ditch.
Yeah. And
So,
and in addition to repairing the crack while we're doing this, it's going to be an opportunity for us to assess the lining of the tank, at least in the anoxic zone, in an attempt to begin to get an idea of what that lining might look like in the rest of the zones of your reactor tank for a future lining project to be determined. But it'll at least give us a chance to assess the lining, because it's 15 years old now.
Forgive the question, but what could go wrong once the area is drained down and they start repair? Is there a consideration or possibility or the thought of, okay, we better be prepared for, two different outcomes, or has any of that been considered?
Yes, one of the things we talked about doing was actually giving a large notification ahead to the county, shutting their flow off, and then obviously coordinating with Mike's staff. It still allows us to run the opposite train. We're just going to run at 50% capacity when it comes to it, because we're going to shut the entire train down. I say train, but the entire that side of the ditch down to make the repair and do the condition assessment. What did we say time frame wise?
Oh, you mean for the actual work? I mean, it's only a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be brought back online, maybe a week at most.
If that, yeah.
to Richard's point, I think what he's asking, so is there any structural risks, risk of the containment, the oxidation ditch wall failing? I mean, things like that. I think, Richard, is that where you were coming from?
Anything other than, oh yeah, we have this plan, and what could go wrong?
We could even find more cracks, right?
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's good on the inside. We don't see those now from the outside, but sure.
Right. But if you did, you could make an assessment and decide, okay, let's do these two, and it's additional cost, or it's okay, we can identify it, but we need to get the ditch back working full blast, and we'll do this another time.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that crack that's out there now is significant, so I'm not expecting to find any cracks that are more significant than that one. But there could be cracks that we find that we want to address, but I also think that we could address those at the same time that the tank is down while they're doing the work, and we will make sure that they have the material to do that.
Good.
To Richard's question, I think you answered it well also in terms of our preparation for, bypassing flow, et cetera. But also a lot of work went into the actual methodology of the crack repair. And it's a tried and true method that we've used in the past several times. And we've gotten our structural engineer involved in looking at this. So I mean, who knows? You're right. We should plan for contingencies, but we don't expect any. And a lot of work went into the actual repair methodology to prevent that from happening.
And, you know, on the aspect of whether there are additional cracks, I mean, we know by looking at the outside, this crack has been there, has been weeping for a while.
Definitely. Yeah.
And there are other signs of white calcium deposits, but none of them have been wet in the time frame we've been monitoring this crack. So, you know, the idea that we would find a crack on the inside that we're not seeing on the outside, I'm not sure what probability that would be.
I mean, like I said, we might find them. And I'm hoping that we can address them because they won't be as significant as the one we are addressing. But if not, if we find it's going to take too much time, we'll just put the tank back in operation and address it in the future.
Because you don't have to necessarily, and Richard, this may answer another question. You don't have to drain the entire side because there's, I don't know, they're like, I call them continental
There's
dividers,
sluice gates or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call them.
which are at a certain height. So you're only going to you're going to drain down to the top of that sluice gate. And then once you drain further, the rest of the tank is still going to have, it's still going to have flow in it.
Yeah, Mike and I haven't actually talked about how we're going to do that yet, but we will coordinate. I know he's giving a lot of thought.
Do you need certain weather conditions for the material to cure properly? Does it need to be a certain temperature or?
No. Yeah, I think we'll be good in February.
Blizzard.
You don't need to be July is what I'm saying.
No, no, definitely not that, Mayor. No.
It sounds like you have done the due diligence and thought what could happen and so on. So I'm satisfied. And thank you.
You're welcome.
So back to the cap. What's the flavor will of the board? I think it was suggested 15,000 was. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah. It's more than 15. We'll come back.
So need a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. So the motion is to approve a cap of $15,000 for the repair of the crack in the oxidation ditch. And anything in addition would have to come back to the board. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 4 in favor?
Thanks, Mike. Mike, if you need me, just call me. Bye.
You watch him.
Okay, so the next item is an open forum or general discussion to set a BPW special meeting for the next step on the wastewater treatment plant following our public workshop on Monday. So we're looking for dates. Press is available the 1st through the 14th and the week of the 20th,
Which month?
February.
So keep in mind your public comments are until February 6th. So it's
Right.
gotta be
So,
after-
yeah, so it'll be, I just asked him for the windows. So,
I'm sorry, when was press go through?
well, actually, so it's the, let me go. So,
When do you come back? You're going to want to.
so the 6th through the 14th.
So technically, it could only be, well. Never mind, go ahead.
Have to be a day
Yeah.
after the.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 7-day notice, but that's fine.
And then the week of the 20th. So actually, the only days he's excluding is the 15th, 16th, and 17th.
So pick some dates and then I'll take a look here and see what I got.
Well, recognizing we have a lot else going on. I leave the country on the 24th.
we
So
should
I
do
think
it
maybe you should do it on the 25th. Would the 9th work?
Would work for me.
Yes.
I I have a DMEC quarterly meeting all day.
Okay, the 8th of the 10th.
10th is a Friday.
Yeah.
And so I will say I have a community meeting on the 8th and a hearing on the 9th. The 10th works for me, but it is a Friday.
Are you
That's
looking
fine.
to do during the day or evening?
It's our meeting, so it does not have to be in the evening. I mean, we want to make it like 4 o'clock, I would think.
I could do the 10th.
I can do the 10th.
The 10th?
Yep. Here.
Depends, Andrew.
Okay.
All right, so the 10th at 4 PM is the date for the public workshop.
Friday, that's Friday,
board.
February 10th
Friday, February 10th
at 4 PM.
at 4 PM.
And that's a board only meeting? Or is that public?
Well, it'll be open to the public, but it's only taking comments from the board.
Got it.
And then, at that point, we can decide how to proceed next. All right. And call to the public. Oh,
Good evening. I'm not sure if you can see me or not. Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my name is Michael Damaris. I'm the president of the HOA at Oyster Cove community. It's a brand new community up off of Old Orchard Road here in Lewes. And I spoke at your meeting in May about this, and I just wanted to circle back in regards to our sewer rates for our community. My first question was it insinuated at the May meeting that the rates were going to be reviewed again for 2023, and I just didn't know if that, according to my information, that has not been addressed yet. So I didn't know if that's under advisement for 2023.
We accepted the 5-year rate increase. We talked about having an additional cost of service study. The board hasn't voted on having the additional cost of service study done at this time.
Okay. As I mentioned at the meeting, the rates for us are exorbitant. The community's spending $108 per month for just sewer. And everyone in the community, from Wilmington, Delaware to New Hampshire to New Jersey, et cetera, these rates are literally quadruple in many cases to what we've paid in the other places that we've lived. For an example, in Wilmington, Delaware, up in Newcastle County, they were spending $300 a year for sewer. It's now $1,300 here. Our water bill is approximately $500 to $600 per year, and we get a usage report. We're paid on what we use, and we're spending. In Lewes, it's literally our community is getting charged over $31,000 for 24 units a year for sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it's just an exorbitant amount of money. I mentioned this at our May meeting, and I just want to and I think we had a couple of the folks that might be on the call from Oyster Cove, but it's just a shock to us in regards to these kind of fees for just for sewer, and there's nothing based on usage. So some of these facilities in our community, they're not even here, 3/4 of the year, and it's still getting a fee of $108 per month for sewer. So we'd like to have an opportunity to make a case to have this reviewed, and it's just an awful lot of money for sewer services for the city.
So just to add, we are not the water provider, that's Tidewater. So we're talking sewer only in this case. The board voted on a rate that was it's a fixed rate based off an average user rate of 4,000 gallons per month, which is 3,200 gallons, and the outside city rate for a 5/8 inch water meter. That's how the rate was developed, just to add clarity.
But also with a like Wilmington, where you have a city or a municipality that owns and operates a utility. You don't know how much extra is in your taxes to make to make any different, to make up any difference in what the actual cost is to the utility.
Yeah, that might be so. I'm not disputing that. It just, I've just never been in a situation where you're getting billed for not what you use. I mean, that I've never seen that in any situation where you usually get charged for what you use for your unit, making an approximation of what I'm going to use versus the guy down the street. It just doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. And $31,000 for 24 units for sewer. I mean, gosh, that's just an incredible amount of money. I think if anyone would, I can't imagine anyone would disagree that that's an exorbitant amount of money.
31,000? What's that?
But that's for the whole, that's for the
Oh,
that's not per
yeah.
person.
It's $1,300 per unit. There's 12 buildings, 24 units, and we're being charged $1,300 per unit. So there's only 12 buildings. So the community's paying over $31,000 for sewer services.
Just to add clarity, piggybacking off of what Austin said before, this is actually one of the reasons why the board has a policy that where water is available, you require water and sewer so that it can be charged on a usage base. But because the BPW isn't providing the water, it can't be charged on a usage base. So for the BPW policies where there is not water, it's set per the formula that Austin mentioned, which is a fixed fee formula based on pipe size and just as was articulated. So it's a fair question on the usage, but the reason it's not tied to usage is because it's not BPW water.
Yeah, and reinforce that. I mean, we would be more than willing to go to usage like we do everywhere else if there was a feasible way of doing that.
So there's just no feasible way to do that. I'm just not understanding the process, I guess.
Well, it would mean metering the sewage lines, which is not normal.
The difficulty is that here's your one-off solution, or here's your one-off where you have Tidewater providing the water. They bill quarterly, we bill monthly. So we would have to have, in this case, if you wanted to go down that route, which is the reason why we didn't, our staff would have to get with Tidewater, get quarterly bills and back bill for usage. And it wouldn't be based off a month because they bill off of a 3-month usage. So you'd have to average out 3 months of usage to bill 26 individuals, which is why we.
And the administrative costs would be very large for doing that.
And
because it's a one-off.
In the Sussex County, even though their rate is different, Sussex County charges on a front footage fee, but they charge a fixed rate in which every customer gets the same amount, no matter how much water you use.
Yeah, that's a very good point that Austin just brought up. Is Sussex County is doing, fixed rates also.
Right. I've heard about the folks that are doing fixed rates. So I know is not unique here. Well, I just think that, on behalf of the community and the HOA and I'm looking at my Tidewater bill for, which is $132 per quarter based on the usage that in my last quarter, which was, that's a reasonable amount of, it's a reasonable in my mind and the community's felt the same way. It's just this sewer situation is just, I'm paying a heck of a lot more for sewer than my water usage, for other things. So I don't know what the next, I just love to have us take a second look at that and see if it's something that could take a little bit relief off the community.
Okay, well, we appreciate it. And I think we can go back and look at it, but I don't see that there's a real option at this point other than taking what you've given us and looking at it.
Okay, well, I'm happy to be. I appreciate you at least. Listen, I understand you probably can't do anything immediately. We can take under advisement. I'd be happy to give you more specifics to whoever that person would be, and at least to take a look at it. We'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Josh, anyone else online?
No other hands.
Bob, you're the only other public. So call to the press. Aaron?
Aaron Marshall, Cape Gazette.
I'm sorry, I must have missed it. What is the date and time for you to discuss the long range treatment plan?
It is,
February 10th, 4 p.m. February
Yes.
10th, 4 p.m. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And this was something that kind of was brought to my attention at the meeting for the first time. And so I wanted to get the board's take on it. Do you feel that there is a sense of urgency coming from Sussex County to find a partner for their wastewater treatment plant? Or do you think that on behalf of them, it is a good faith cooperation?
well, I think it's two separate questions. I think it's a good faith discussion with Sussex County. They obviously need to make their long-term plans on what they're going to do. Now, they've got some wiggle room there. So there's no gun being put to our head. But we need to do something because of the risks to the facility, and they need to do something because of their needs. So, we do feel a sense of urgency to keep this moving in a timely manner. So we're not going to wait a year. But by the same token, we're not going to rush to a decision.
Okay, great.
But also, we've talked to the county and they've offered it, but they're going to go ahead with their plan, whether we go or not.
Okay,
We're just an addendum
okay.
to their plan. They're already set up to go forward, whether we're there or not.
Okay.
They would just include us in their planning if we decide to go with.
I need to. They do not have firm plans on what they're going to do because their plans will be based upon what we do. So
I understand that, but my point is they're going to go ahead with their plans if we're there or not. But
We need to do something.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So they're waiting for us to say, yes, that would be great. We'll go ahead with you. And if we do, then their plan is going to include us.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
So that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
I just didn't want to give any impression that they're going forward with a set plan.
No. I'm not privy to their exact plans. I'm just saying that they will do what they have to do, whether we're there or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. A motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I mean,